What's up, Internet? You're tuning in episode 105 of the FlipScreen Games Podcast, a weekly video game podcast where two best buds from different nations come together to discuss the wide world of video games. I'm your host, Pete and Bessie, joined as always by my very good friend and co-host, Mr. Stephen Radford.
Hello, hello.
And then joining us this week, friend of the show, very special guest for the first time on this podcast, Mr. Chris Brandrick.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, I can't believe this is the first time you're on FlipScreen. I know we had you on Nintendo Noise a couple of times discussing, and previously I think on the podcast, right, when we were still over at Loot's Pots to discuss the is it year in Switch or what?
Yeah,
State of
Switch
Switch.
survey, the state of the Switch.
State of Switch. That's it. Yeah, but we've got you here because we've got a big old week of Gamescom. You were on the floor at Gamescom. Kind of give us the gist as to your other hat that you don from time to time over at Overkill.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. And I know it's probably a bit late now, but grats on reaching the 100. Not many podcasts do. Yeah. But yeah, in terms of what you just alluded to, obviously, if you've seen me on like Nintendo Noise, I do Switch Weekly, which is a weekly kind of gaming newsletter all about the Nintendo Switch. But in addition to that, like for the past 6 months, like a year, I don't know how long it's been, a year, sorry. I've been doing Overkill, which is a website kind of focused on like handhelds, like predominantly like the Steam Deck, and like there's like loads of them coming out now, isn't there? But yeah, new kind of publication focused on handheld gaming.
Which is really, it's like really good. Yeah.
Come on then. Oh, no, all right. Hold on, Steve. You go ahead.
I was just saying, like this is the perfect week because we had and I saw that Kevin put a post up over on Overkill about it. The Project Q that we knew all about got a glitzy rebrand as the PlayStation Portal.
It sure did.
Yeah.
Real quick, but fresh out the gate, because the Portal, right? It's a controversial device. You know, we're gonna talk all about it. I want to ask how we feel about the name. Obviously, Project Q, terrible. PlayStation Portal. I've seen mixed responses. I think it's pretty good.
I like it because you still get to retain the PSP kind of acronym, which is cute. You know, so
I get it, like
smart.
And like I dig it because it's a companion piece, right? Like the point is not that it's its own console; it's a portal to your PlayStation 5.
Your PlayStation 5. Yeah,
Beautiful,
exactly. It works.
Right?
It works.
Like, good marketing. I like it.
Yep, I like the name. That's about all I like. Yeah.
Okay, I was gonna say, like, how does this stack up for you? We'll go through some of the details in it, but what was your gut reaction when you first saw it? Because me and Pete had like a discussion about it, and I know we spoke about the price point as maybe being the deciding factor for this for both of us.
Yeah,
we now know it's $199.99, and it's launching later this year.
Like, it'll find an audience, but I think it's a niche within a niche, isn't it? And like, what it could have been and what it actually is, it's kind of disappointing. I mean, the fact that it's so limited in its scope and like its appeal, just it kind of hampers the excitement around it, you know, and what it could have been, especially when you have people who, you know, were diehard PSP or Vita fans and they wanted something more from Sony, and this is just kind of like a limp half step, I guess.
Were you one of those diehard PSP and Vita fans?
No, not particularly. I mean, I did have a kind of intense interest in the PSP very early on. I imported a PSP from Japan before it launched in the UK, and those were a fun few weeks.
What are you kidding me?
Playing it on.
Were you a diehard PSP guy? No, I just imported one from Japan.
Yeah. But then, like, I kind of fell out of love with the whole kind of like UMD format. I didn't love it, but it was cool as an emulation device. So yeah, I didn't play many kind of original PSP titles on it, that's for sure. But no, not big on the PSP really and PS Vita, but this is kind of, I don't know.
The PSP is hilarious in that way for me, in that I would describe myself as a big fan of it. But if you asked me what are the 10 best games on the PSP, I don't know that I could name 10 games that came out for the PSP.
Really?
Right.
You couldn't? I think I could. I had quite a lot of PSP games and ones that I managed to get onto a memory stick somehow. I don't know how that would have happened. But I had such a good time with the PSP. I did. The first thing I ever did like homebrew stuff on as well, so it always holds a fond place for me there.
Yeah,
and I do wonder if homebrew is a possibility for the Portal at some point, because the leak we saw, it was just running Android, so presumably someone's just gonna unlock the bootloader on this and be able to flash it with like a copy of Android at some point. and we're going to be able to open this up to do more things.
Yeah, you got to imagine the guts are going to be pretty limited, though.
Probably, but at the very least, I could stream an Xbox game as well as a PlayStation game. There's that possibility that I could unlock. And there's a load of things that this thing does do. It runs games at 1080p 60 frames per second, depending on your connection. It can be used outside of the home as well as inside the home. But there's also a load of things it can't do. And I kind of want to focus on those a little bit because some of them are just so strange. Like we spoke literally last week about how PlayStation is now experimenting with streaming, and they've got this new SSD system that they've built that allows them to stream PS5 games now that wasn't previously possible. You can't play any of those on the PlayStation Portal. It doesn't let you. If you're streaming anything to your PlayStation 5, you can't then stream it onto your Portal. And presumably that's because of latency, but it seems like a bit of an oversight if they're trying to launch a streaming service, don't you think?
Yeah. It's weird.
I guess the question becomes, is that a feature that is never going to come to the device, or is that a feature that they're not promising at launch because it doesn't presently work well? Because I think
if that's the case, you just wait. Don't launch this. You have to put your best foot forward, and the Xbox Game Cloud. That Xbox, it doesn't work great everywhere, but they're putting it everywhere they can.
So that's what I was about to bring up. Is I think about the Xbox Game Cloud thing, right, or Xbox Cloud streaming, and I feel like the reason it's free as part of Game Pass is because it doesn't work very well.
Yeah.
And I feel like maybe the answer to this, right, is that the tech for getting the games from the cloud to this device is not quite there yet. But the remote play experience obviously does work well, right? Like remote play is not new. It's been around since the PS3. And by all accounts, from folks that use it on the regular, it does work really well, and you get an experience, that is more akin to playing the game as if it were running on the PS5, over a strong connection, like in your home or whatever, right? So, we've talked a lot about this device as being something that is, like you said, it's a niche of a niche. And I think PlayStation understands that. I feel like that's how it's being marketed. And I feel like that's kind of their answer to that question is like, well, that's not the point of this device. Right. And it's like, well, then why would I get it? And I think their answer to that would, and, maybe I'm giving them too much rope, but it's like, I feel like the answer is, well, yeah, then it's not for you. Don't buy it. That's cool. But
isn't that the same argument that people had for the PlayStation VR too? But I kind of feel like at some point you need to build something that's for more people, that is for a broader audience, and that isn't $200. And then if I want to be able to listen to it with wireless headphones, I've got to spend another $200. Like that.
So that for me is one of the lack of Bluetooth is really, really weird.
The lack
kind
of Bluetooth
anti-consumer.
is rough. Yeah, for sure. I think particularly that they're launching it alongside these new Bluetooth headphones. That feels
kind
pretty
of
rough.
egregious, yeah.
But those headphones don't have Bluetooth. They can't connect wirelessly to a PS5.
Right.
They work with work now with a dongle. And it's strange, and I think that really highlights the fact that we've got a new PlayStation coming. If they are releasing headphones that now require a USB dongle, you've got to imagine the next PlayStation 5 revision is going to have
native,
PlayStation Link built in, because it makes no sense. But these are the only headphones that will work wirelessly with the PlayStation Portal. But I can imagine I can go buy one of those things that I bought for my Switch early on in its life cycle, where I just plug it into the headphone jack and then Bluetooth magically works. So why can you not just include that in the device? It feels like a really anti-consumer thing to do. And I can imagine a lot of people would be screaming if all of a sudden, Apple brought out a new phone and they're like, it only works with Apple headphones only now. It only works with AirPods. People would be like, what the hell? Why?
You're really gonna play that card? That like Apple did exactly that, and then the EU is forcing them to change their charger back to something not proprietary. So they did do that.
You can always use Bluetooth, and I think for me there are enough Bluetooth standards. aptX low latency, for example, I have had no issues with it on my Steam Deck, on my Switch. I have had no issues connecting to it and thinking that, this doesn't kind of line up. And I've even streamed my PlayStation to my Steam Deck and then used Bluetooth headphones, and I've had no issues. And I've never once thought, wow, this really could be a little bit more low latency.
And the weird thing is with this Portal kind of proposition is that obviously they're saying it's for remote play only, and you can't use it for our cloud offering, which, yes, it may well be in its infancy, but that's at least something unique and different that they've got in terms of offering their library in a different way. But the fact of the matter is you can do remote play on countless devices already. You've got these sort of devices that strap around your mobile phone and make it into a controller, or you just grab a tablet or whatever. So it's
I do want to touch on that though, because I think when you start bringing up those comparisons, it's why I think this device makes more sense than people maybe give it credit for. And I feel like the response, and I don't mean to say that if you feel this way that's wrong, but it's like, I think it reminds me of the reaction from certain hardcore fans to the Switch Lite, right? Where it's like, who's this for? It's giving up functionality.
Yeah.
Why would you? And it's like, well, yeah, but it's not for you, right? You already own a Switch, and if you feel that way, you buy a base model. But like, if you are a family with a kid and you want something that's more durable, or this or that, or portability is important to you, then this device exists for you. I think when you start bringing up that comparison of, well, you could do this on this device or this device or this device, how many of those devices are this affordable though? Right? Because
there's obviously there's the affordability aspect, but then there's also like the comfort aspect. It's literally a PS5 controller, so it kind of translates well. There are definitely pros to this product. It's like, just
you bring up the phone thing, like the Backbone, right? I think this is only $50 more than the Backbone. The idea that this is $50 more than that, and I think, like, personally, right?
They're very different products, though. Like, if I buy Backbone, I can play Pokemon on my phone, or I can stream an Xbox game, or I can connect to Genshin Impact wherever I am, which I think is probably why the majority
it's apples
buy
and
those
oranges,
things.
sure.
But I think that comes back to the point of, like, where we're at with video games and like the many different types of users that there are. What if I don't care about doing any of that? Right? Like, I don't play Genshin Impact on my phone, or I don't want to play emulators on my phone. Like, that's not my goal. My goal is to play specifically, I'm playing Baldur's Gate 3 on the PS5 in 2 weeks. And
I think it kind of comes back, to the kind of niche within a niche point, and how, like, we've got all of these countless devices as well now. Like, you got the Steam Deck, you got the ROG Ally, you got this new Lenovo Legion Go thing, whatever that is. And the countless devices that come from manufacturers like A&E, there's so many different devices out there now to fit these smaller niches. I think what's interesting here, though, is probably it's just we're all kind of collectively surprised that Sony's making a product that seems to be so narrow in its kind of appeal.
Yeah. Because again, right, like, they have this lineage of making handhelds, and that's kind of I think that's what the hardcore wants this to be. I'm included in that. I would rather this is the successor to the PS Vita. That would be exciting to me, right? This is a product I don't necessarily have any use case for because I own a Steam Deck. But like, if I didn't own a Steam Deck and I was constantly in a situation like Steve has this all the time, right? Where like Steve will stream games from his PlayStation to his Steam Deck because he doesn't want to monopolize the television, and then his partner can't use their shared living room, right? Like,
that's the Wii U dream all over. Yeah.
Exactly. And I don't think that's an uncommon occurrence. And the idea that there's a segment of users that are like, well, I don't want to shell out the money for an iPad or a Steam Deck or one of these, more versatile devices because they're 2 to 3 times more expensive. And I don't want that. All I want is to play whatever game I'm playing on my PlayStation on a second screen and have
with a controller I'm used to,
exactly.
Yeah.
And to have
I totally get that,
feature set, right? Because you also get all the benefits of the DualSense, like, the haptic feedback and everything.
I mean, you'd get that if you just connected it to, like, you Bluetooth connected that to your iPad, right? You would still get the benefits.
But that's the thing is, like, again, you're talking about the convenience factor. A, an iPad's way more expensive, but B, if you're playing an iPad, like, we lost Chris. If you're playing an iPad, it's not the same as sitting there with a console in your hand, right? Like, you then have to, like, balance the iPad on a table and sync a controller and hold it. And it's not the same as just holding a device.
I totally get that. I think This device, I think the price point is exactly where I expected it to be. I think 199 was exactly what I said when it was officially when it was first announced.
$50 cheaper. If it was 149, I feel
if
like
it was 149,
so
it's
much more attractive.
Yeah, it's and I 100% agree with you. I think the strangest 2 points for me are what we've spoken about, that I can't stream games from PlayStation Plus that I can do on any other device. I can do that on an iPad. I can do that on my PC. I can even do that on a Mac, but I can't do that on the PlayStation Portal, which is really strange. And it's like they don't talk to anyone else within Sony, and they've not realized that people have invested in like $300 noise canceling Sony earphones and that they will want to use with their devices, and that they can't, and they have to buy just a set of earbuds that are dedicated and only for the PlayStation.
Yeah, it's
just
wild
such a
that one of the biggest headphone
thing.
makers in the world doesn't. Yeah.
I wonder if it would be possible for them to make it so that their proprietary headphones that are not the PlayStation ones work with PlayStation Link.
I don't think so, because even the Pulse headphones that you had, they don't work with PlayStation Link. It's only these two new ones that do,
right?
And they've said that they are opening it up to other manufacturers, but presumably there's going to be some kind of license fee that goes back to PlayStation in order to support PlayStation Link.
But I mean, maybe like moving forward, new headsets will support it.
That would be my guess, is that the Sony ones will support PlayStation Link. Like, why wouldn't they? It makes sense.
The one thing I do want to, like, I guess, call out, just because I mean, we'll have to wait until it's in the wild and we let somebody who's a headphone expert test it. But my understanding is that part of the motivation behind PlayStation Link is to have higher quality audio sent wirelessly, because Bluetooth is not good quality audio.
I can believe that, but like aptX HD, which is like the latest the kind of the latest codec that these headphones are using, that can support HD lossless audio, and Sony have been putting that into their like HD lossless Walkmans. It's in their headphones. Like, they are pretty dead set on it. So I don't understand why they would kind of backtrack, especially considering we had a standard baked into the PS5 that we've got now. True. And to remove that in favor of their own proprietary thing again, it feels like a step backwards. It's what we had with the PS4, where you couldn't connect Bluetooth to that and you had to buy their headphones, and it came with a little USB dongle. We're back to that again. It felt like we took one step forward and we've taken two steps back again. And I really wish that this was just a swing and a hit, and it feels like some of these are just swing and misses, because I like the device. I think it's a cool looking thing, and I could see myself using it not for 199 but for 149. Maybe I pick one of these up used when people have got them for Christmas, and
or
they're
when
like,
they inevitably go on sale, right? Like, like probably a year or two after it launches, there'll be a Black Friday sale where it's 50% off, and you're like, okay, $100 I could definitely see, right? That's way
absolutely, yeah. That's a no-brainer for me, because, you know, a DualSense is like, what, $70 anyway, and you're adding a big high resolution screen in the middle of it. And not to mention the fact that this is presumably going to be a lot lighter than holding a Steam Deck.
That's true.
I hope so, yeah.
and sometimes that's all I need, is just something light and easy to play and just to hold in my hands.
It's also worth pointing out, two other things I wanted to, I guess, touch on. I think it's worth pointing out that, like, as hardcore players that like are into these like enthusiast handheld, like, a lot of people don't want to download Chiaki and have to like
100%,
that, you know, so I think this speaks to that.
But that step doesn't need to happen. You know, Sony could have made that easy.
Sure.
In the same way that all I need to do in order to play an Xbox game wirelessly is go to play.xbox.com in any Chromium browser, and I can just play it. And I don't need to install anything or do anything. I just log into my Xbox account and I can go. Like, they could have made it that simple, but they decided not to, because they want to sell you their own device.
Totally.
That's the business they're in, and I totally get that. It's a very different approach to Microsoft's. But it's when it's selling me one device to play a game and then also expecting me to spend another $150 to be able to listen to it wirelessly when I'm in bed, so I'm not disturbing my partner. That's like one step too far for me.
Yeah.
Totally. And this is what I'm telling you guys. Stop using wireless earphones. They're not good. They don't sound as good. Get a wired headset.
But they're so convenient, and I like them, and I'm not going to.
The last thing I wanted to touch on that I think is interesting is like this price in the context of the like premium controllers that both console manufacturers of the HD boxes offer, right? Where it's like this thing costs, it's basically the same cost. It's a little bit less, right, than the premium DualSense controller that they just came out with. Isn't that?
And what happens when the sticks drift on this then? Because I can swap those out on my premium controller.
I don't know.
I guess I can't really do that on these.
Yeah, you'd hope so.
Yeah, I don't know. Good question though.
Because they will drift. They definitely will.
Knock on wood. I've not had that happen with any of my PS5 controllers. I had it happen with one of my Xbox controllers, weirdly enough. But it's like such a like.
Yeah, I had stick drift on PS4, but yeah.
Oh, you had one on the DualShock 4?
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's another one.
Obviously, Switch. Yeah.
Yeah. Switch. Please, right?
Switch had on every single one of them. And but the Ghillie Kit sticks fixed it for me, and I've had no problems.
I actually picked up a pair of the Ghillie Kit sticks at Gamescom, so I need to install them. How did you find the installation?
So great. They are so great. Yeah.
Okay. I need to get them out and do the
job.
Asked
how you got on with the installation.
Yeah.
Easy. With I haven't had no issues, but I replaced my sticks on the on my Joy-Con like 6 times in its lifetime.
Okay. Right.
Like across like 3 different pairs. So for me, it's like opening a book.
You're like a veteran of that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so easy. I'll talk about it on the Steam Deck podcast this week, but I just bought a fan replacement finally for my Steam Deck as well. So it's gonna be my first time opening that thing. So it may get to a point where I've like completely bricked my Steam Deck. So people will have to listen to see if that happens.
Yeah.
Well, thankfully you can buy a refurbished model and get back in
I've been trying, but they're sold out still. I keep refreshing it every couple of days. I'm like, I really want a 64 gig model for $279. Like, that's such a good deal. I do really want one so I can modify the hell out of it.
Absolutely. So I guess to put a pin or a period on the PlayStation Portal conversation here before we get into a little more Gamescom talk, or into a little Gamescom talk, I should say. I'm very interested. I wish I knew what Sony's expectations for this device are, because I really think if they look at it as a product that it exists specifically for that very specific user that we were talking about, and like they're happy with it just being that, in the same way that like, you'd feel about any other console accessory, right? A lesser accessory. I don't know. I wonder, is this a thing we'll look back on and it'll be like a quiet success, or is it going to be a thing that kind of comes out and it's like the PlayStation TV or something where you're like, oh yeah, that's a thing they made?
Which is something I don't understand why they don't do, because I do feel like that's another product that would be really great. It's like a portal that's just a stick that I plug into another TV and I can remote play. Or even better, you sell TVs. Why don't you just put a PlayStation Remote Play app on them? And like just on my Sony
Chromecast
TV,
everything with PlayStation.
Why can I not do that? Like that seems like a no-brainer too. And it's like these weird little things that they just don't do that makes me think like they do not communicate outside of PlayStation. It's like PlayStation comes up with these ideas and they're not like, oh wait, the other side of our business makes TVs. We could just have this like stream to the other TVs in the house.
Point. Like the TV.
Yeah, it does kind of speak to the kind of vertical structure of the business, or not vertical, rather. Yeah,
it's weird because like the PS5 and the TVs have a special interaction. Like a friend of mine bought a Sony TV, and like it has like a dedicated PS5 gaming mode, right? And it like, it's like, oh, it perfectly connects to the technology and takes full, blah, 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 whatever. Who knows how much it actually matters, but they market it that way. And the idea that what you like the dongle specifically, that makes so much sense. Why don't they have a Steam Link style dongle? Because that's all this technology is, right? Like theoretically, right? Why can't I just stick one into the TV I have upstairs and you just beam it there instead of to this handheld?
Yeah, my controller's already connected, so all I need to do is just like I can just
keep
watch
a controller
it in the other room. Yeah.
I think in terms of their expectations for the device, there has to be modest, right? I mean, it's an accessory essentially. They can talk about it as like a standalone handheld, which it isn't. I mean, it's an accessory that's going to appeal to a very limited section. So I don't know. In terms of their expectations, it feels to me like one of those projects that kind of had a promising start and then kind of just got watered down to where it is now. And it's like, let's just get it out the door. I don't know. Speaking for Sony here.
No, I can absolutely see that
Yeah.
they started with like, we could make something cool with this. We could make another handheld. We could make another PlayStation Portable.
Sure.
But we'll take some of those letters off the name, and we'll just call it the Portal, and it only does this one thing, and it does a really watered down job of that one thing, and it
it really feels like a monkey paw.
Just the checklist keeps getting worse and worse, doesn't it? Yeah. Scratch that. Yeah.
It's like the world's biggest PlayStation Vita fan like sold their soul to like, just want a successor, right? And it's like the monkey paw finger curls, and it's like, like
killer name though. Killer name. I like the name.
It is cool. The PlayStation Portal. Good name.
Yeah.
You know what? Another thing I would be interested to see is if they do a bundle. I could see that being interesting.
I kind of feel like they will, and I think that'd be a good Christmas gift. Is like, here's the PS5s we're trying to clear out because they're on sale again because we know the new one's coming in. Right.
True.
And you can get a PlayStation Portal with it, or maybe you get the bundle with the headphones, and that makes those headphones cheaper. Maybe it's like a $350 or something.
This is like the exact type of bullshit I would love to get for Christmas, because it's like, it is the type of thing where it's like,
there's no way you're spending your own money on it. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not going to spend $200 for myself, but if somebody just gave me one, I'd be like, oh, cool. All right, sweet.
Yeah. Let's kick the tires on this thing, see what it can do. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I would love to put it through its paces. A friend of mine is getting a play date, and it's like showing up next week, I think. And I was like, oh, amazing. I really want to play one and would not have bought one. So that's perfect.
It's the same with those kind of a sidebar, that the Analog Pocket, they just announced that glow in the dark version, haven't they?
Yeah.
And like, there are still people waiting for the shipment of the original when they ordered it, like whenever it was, like a year or two ago now. I'd be kind of pissed if I was still waiting on my original and this new special edition glow in the dark one showed up. But yeah.
Are they going to let people like swap over, do you think? Like, can I just write them?
Where's my upgrade email, gang?
I don't think so, but apparently they're going to get all their orders out this week. So it's fine, but whatever.
God,
I'll still be a bit miffed.
One of those so bad for no reason.
Yeah, same.
I do not need one.
It's why I've not bought it.
No. Could use it as an instrument, though. It's pretty cool. Built-in synthesizer. All right, so we're going to talk about Chris's experience at Gamescom, as well as a couple highlighted bits of news. But before that, let me remind you that this episode of the FlipScreen Games podcast is brought to you by our Patreon producers for the month of August. They are, of course, Arnold J. Rimmer, Christopher Valenz, Earth Visitor, Gabriel Hasselmeyer, a.k.a. Asobi, Snackago, Ty the Dude, and Wakahula. Thank you all so much for your support over on patreon.com/FlipScreenGames. You're all the realest to the real, and we greatly appreciate your support of this and all of our sister shows. If you want to get your name added to that list and get a bunch of cool perks and goodies, or you just want to write in and be involved in the show, you can find links to all that and much more over at our website, FlipScreen.Games. Whether you want to join the Discord, keep the conversation roll between episodes, whether you want to write in and get your thoughts read on next week's show, however you choose to get involved, whatever you want to do, that is the best place to go. FlipScreen.Games. Go over there, click on some stuff. It helps us out quite a bit, and it won't cost you a pretty penny. All right, we're back. Let's talk Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah, I want to know, Chris, are you playing this? Are you playing Baldur's Gate 3?
No, I'm going to be useless in this segment. I have no context. Sorry, guys.
You got to get in on this game. It's so good. You like RPGs?
Sure. But not like no idea.
All right.
Yeah. Other than the fact that everyone seems to be loving it.
I mean, the story here isn't that Baldur's Gate 3 is great, which it is, and we spoke about it on the Steam Deck podcast last week. The story is
we're going to do an episode about it, everybody. All right? I know.
Yeah.
I promise. I know you want one. Me and Steve will talk about it probably next week, okay? I promise.
Yeah, this is probably one of those things that you can bring me up to speed on in terms of like what's actually gone down here with the whole kind of Xbox and Phil Spencer thing, because this kind of broke while I was at Gamescom, so I didn't actually read the article.
Okay.
But, yeah,
let's catch up.
Yeah. I mean, do you know that it was announced for Xbox?
Yeah.
And then everyone got fuming because they thought Larian
some sort of like feature parity thing, right? As well. Yeah.
Well, everyone thought, because there was like an announcement at a PlayStation event, and everyone thought it wasn't coming to Xbox because PlayStation had given them a shitload of money and it was now exclusive. But then it came out that wasn't the case, and the only reason was because they couldn't get split screen co-op to work on the Series S.
Yeah.
And in order to release a game on Xbox, apparently you need to have feature parity. On Series S and Series X.
This is interesting because this is a story we've talked about a couple times on this show. It's been kind of like a quiet developing story over the last, 2 years or whatever, where every once
in terms
in a
of
while,
how wedded they are to that parity thing.
Yeah, and like every once in a while, you get one of these developers that comes out and kind of grumbles about the fact that like the Series S is really hampering development on Xbox, and the fact that they are trying to, force a square peg in a round hole when it comes to getting these games to have full feature parity on both devices. It's just not. There's some things that just struggle, right? And like in this scenario, right, you basically handed your biggest competitor a de facto exclusive for one of the biggest games of the year, highest rated game on Metacritic this year, just because you wanted to have this budget box.
I mean, Phil Spencer disagrees with you in that regard. He did an interview with Eurogamer. I don't know if you saw this, Chris, at Gamescom. And they spoke about a few things, one of which specifically was about the Series S. And Eurogamer said, you mentioned Series S. Is there a future where you have to leave it behind for some titles? Baldur's Gate 3 is a big one this year. And obviously, we're still waiting for the Xbox version of that, where split screen appears to be the issue. It was mentioned recently that Forza Motorsport won't ship with split screen. He said that those two things aren't the same, and that Forza Motorsport was never going to have split screen because the team made the decision based on usage, and no one played split screen apparently.
Right.
And he spoke that he was going to meet with Larian, and he did, and we'll talk about the solution that they came to. But he said, I don't see a world where we drop S. In terms of parity, I don't think you've heard that from us or Larian that this was about parity. I think that's more that the community is talking about it. There are features that ship on X today that do not ship on S, even from our own games, like ray tracing that works on X, but it's not on S in certain games. So for
that's
an
kind
S
of a different
customer,
conversation, but
they spent right. They spent roughly half what the X customer bought, and they understand that it's not going to run the same way.
So that's all well and good. This is double talk, right?
Yeah, because it's a technical feature versus a content feature, content play. Yeah,
and that's not what we're talking about, right? And like him saying like, oh, I think like this is a fan thing where people are like misunderstood, like they're losing the thread. That's not what's happening. Like Larian said that the game that they want to put it out on Xbox, and that the reason they can't is because they were not satisfied with the state of co-op on Xbox Series S. I don't care what Phil says. That's what they said. And I believe that, because what reason do they have to
say otherwise?
Yeah, right. To say otherwise. And if it worked, the game would be out. Right?
Yeah, they're not going to just leave money on the table, are they? Yeah.
Absolutely not. So, yeah, like the idea that what he's doing here is talking around the issue, right? And being like, oh, this is normal. Like if you own an S, you understand that it's not the same experience. Yeah, when it comes to technical things like that, right? I'm not expecting ray tracing. I'm not expecting 4K. I didn't sign up for that. What you did tell me was that every game that runs on Xbox Series X will run on Xbox Series S, and it'll be the same experience. What you're compromising is performance, is the extra technical bells and whistles, but the core gameplay experience is going to be the same. That is how you marketed this device. And to try and say anything else is duplicitous. And like, I think it's because he doesn't want to admit that this is a problem, right? There's no comfortable way for him to say, yeah, we really got egg in our face on this one. A lot of developers are upset about it, I heard rumblings out of Gamescom from plenty of folks who were there in attendance that there are many developers talking about how they do not like the Xbox Series S.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, I think maybe this is going to be the start of a change in policy in that regard. It sounds like, yes, they do want to make split screen co-op happen, and from an IGN interview that also happened at Gamescom, it came out that Xbox has sent developers to Larian to assist in getting that feature set across the line. But Phil did have a conversation with the CEO of Larian, right? While he was at Gamescom.
Do you want to read the statement we have from Larian here, Steve?
Yeah, so the statement from Larian says, super happy to confirm that after meeting Phil Spencer yesterday, we found a solution that allows us to bring Baldur's Gate 3 to Xbox players this year still, something we've been working towards for quite some time. All improvements will be there with split screen co-op on Series X. The Series S will not feature split screen co-op, but it will include cross-save progression between Steam and Xbox Series. So it's the one thing that they said all along that was the sticking point, that was the problem, that we cannot get split-screen co-op to work on the Series S because the performance just isn't there. Then now given a free pass to release it without it, so that the feature set is going to be different on Series X and Series S.
Do we think this is a problem?
No. I never thought it was a problem. I never understood why it was a problem. I never understood the policy on it. You get the same game, you just can't play co-op, split-screen co-op. It's a marketing issue at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's a marketing issue. It's a bit of a messy one, but it's
I guess that's the thing, though, right? Is like, I don't know. Does that damage this product's image? You know, because it's like
I don't think so. I mean, it's a niche game. I kind of feel like this is a niche way people are going to play this game anyway. It's split screen co-op on a TV on a Series S.
Yeah,
I don't think that it's a massive issue, and it's digital only. I feel like they can get that across easily in the digital store that split screen co-op's not available with this, or it is available with this on the console that you're currently playing on. They can get the feature set across, and if they're still working to get it on there at some point, it means that people can still play the game while it's hot, while it's fresh, and they can play with friends on other platforms without missing out, and they can kind of play split screen further down the line if they want to. But I don't know anyone playing this split screen. No one.
No. Yeah, I mean, I think like if they get it across the line and if the feature ends up being there, then yeah, great. But in terms of your question about whether it harms the kind of overall image of the S, probably, but not with the kind of core audience that it matters for, I guess. Because the people who are going to moan and bitch about this are the people who probably own an X, you know? It's one of those weird things. But as time goes on and if this becomes more kind of an accepted thing, then yeah, it will be seen as like the runt of the litter. Oh, don't get that one. That one can't do X, Y, Z, you know? So
yeah, I mean,
depends how it goes.
That's kind of how I'm left feeling about it. And I kind of already felt that way about that device. That was like Steve and I were, I think, on pretty opposite sides of the fence when it was revealed of like, I don't think it's a good device. Like I totally understand. Like we have a quote here from Phil where he's saying having an entry level price point for a console sub $300 is a good thing for the industry. I think it's important. The Switch has been able to do that, and you know, it's important. I agree. Right?
I think it's not just important for the industry. I think it's important for Xbox. And we found out that more than 50%, especially in Japan, have been Series S's that they're selling. It's a cheap entry point into that ecosystem. You can pick one up. Used, you can get these for like £100 in the UK. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, which is nuts.
And you can then pick up Game Pass and you can play the games that you want.
Well, that was it for me. I mean, I had no interest in picking up a next-gen console because I was quite content with my Nintendo Switch. But then Halo Infinite came along, and believe it or not, I actually tried it first on my iPad, like over cloud streaming, and I was like, okay, I need to play this game. So I went and got an S because I wasn't that invested, and you know, so I'll just play Game Pass games, and it's been great. But yeah, it's the lesser of the two, you know, it's.
But if it's not your primary console, it's not the main place you're playing. If it's the secondary device, which I think the S is for a lot of people, it's a way for you to pick up a console and play Starfield, and then maybe never go back to it if that's all you ever wanted to play on it.
Yeah, and it's kind of one of those things like where if like say for example, the Xbox Cloud stuff becomes, you know, usable to the scale like that they want it to be, then the S solves that problem because you can play any game on it and it doesn't matter. So
yeah, that's a good point. It's funny, like I feel like it's very similar to the conversation we just had about the Portal, where it's like it's just a matter of like what you're looking to get out of the device.
Yeah, it's for someone, but it's not for me or you.
Yeah,
but it is for someone.
Because like I look at it, I'm like, man, like here's a whole thing. How much on unit memory is there on the S again?
There was 512, but they've now got a terabyte version.
Right.
Okay. So even with the 512, you're safe. But because I'm like, I feel like that's gonna fill up so quick, man. Baldur's Gate.
It will fill up. I mean,
Baldur's Gate is a fifth of that already.
You'll fit Starfield on there, and then maybe like one other game.
Yeah.
And that's it.
And it's,
but I think that's fine. I think most people play one game at a time, or even one game a year. Like you might have Fortnite installed on there, and it's in your kid's bedroom, and that's all that they play, and that's all that matters. And it really doesn't matter. I think a lot of these are secondary devices for people. It's not their primary console.
I think with this one, I'm just like, it just feels like another chip in the armor where I'm like, so why would you buy this one? And it's like, I guess it is just because it's so much cheaper, right? But it's like, then like, are you going to pay to expand the memory? And then, it's now like, as we get deeper in the generation, are there more and more things it can't do? But
Yeah,
again,
I mean, the memory is a big thing.
doesn't care, I guess.
The memory is a big thing. I mean, 512 gigabytes was not enough. The terabyte model makes a lot more sense for I think it's 50 quid more in the UK. It's 299 instead of 249. Even still, that's under 300 quid. I think it's 299 in the US as well. It's under 300 quid. And you got a 1 terabyte model. I wish, and at launch, I loved the approach that Xbox did, where they had the solution at launch with the cards, and you can plug them in, and it was great, and it was easy. I really wish now that they had followed what PlayStation did and let anyone put whatever SSD they wanted in there, because that is a big problem, and it's going to become a bigger problem as the generation goes on, as games get larger and larger.
Yeah.
Those cards are really expensive, and you can only get them from 2 manufacturers that are licensed by Microsoft. Whereas I can go and buy any SSD and shove it in a PlayStation. I can pick up like a 1 terabyte drive for like 60 quid on sale and put it in a PlayStation. Those drives cost almost 200 quid in the UK for Xbox. And that's insane. That's an insane amount of money to spend on a piece of memory.
And it's weird that it's Microsoft doing it, not Sony, after all their
memory
card nonsense. Yeah.
Very anti-consumer. Weird decision. Yeah, it's like, huh. This episode rhymes in an interesting way,
Yeah, it's like both of them make weird choices at times. I think the Series S, from a business perspective, for them makes sense on a lot of levels.
Yeah.
Good price point. The chips that weren't good enough to go in a Series X, they downclock them, they shove them in a Series S, and they sell them on, and they're not left with a yield of chips that can't do anything. So they can ship more and more consoles than any competitor could. And during the chip shortage, I think that was really important for them. It helped get them through it. Whereas we saw PlayStations were constantly out of stock. Also could be a popularity thing there, but the Series S never seemed to go out of stock. It was like always in stock.
Unless it was on sale, and then it was gone for weeks.
I mean, on sale is like under $200. You're like, are you really not going to pick one up? I thought, I considered when we were streaming constantly.
Oh my god!
Should I just buy another one? Like buy a Series S for up here?
And it was the first time it was $50 off, and it was like $150. I'm like, I could do that. That's not that bad. Like,
it's almost impulse.
Yeah, and it's like with Game Pass, you're like, all right. You'll get some use out of that thing.
Yeah, I like the device.
Well, I'm interested to see long-term, I guess, what this means, right? Like this compromise. Does this open the floodgates for folks to...
I think that's my biggest concern is does this give developers a free pass not to bother with the Series S? Like, are we not going to see features coming, or is this going to be on a case-by-case basis where you have to have a meeting at Gamescom with Phil Spencer, and basically Phil Spencer has to come up with a solution? Because I think if it would have been a totally different story if Baldur's Gate had come out and it landed with a flop and it was okay, and no one's really bothered about the game coming to Xbox anymore because it only got like 6 out of 10 on Metacritic or whatever, people would be like, oh, whatever, I don't really care then.
But it's come out and been like shit hot and everyone's talking about it, so
yeah, and it's a real big miss for Microsoft. It looks like they've got egg on their face. It's just like, oh, we've missed out on this because of literally just because of a policy that we've got, that we can't release it because it's got to be the same on both SKUs.
And then just to flip on it. So
and then just to flip on it. But they only flipped on it because it's a really good game and everyone's talking about it and everyone wants it, and it's bad PR for them.
Yeah, but it's like, where do you draw the line? It's like your game scores high enough on Metacritic, and we're like, whatever, the rules don't apply. You know, like it's like, it reminds me of like when Sony was like, oh, you got to pay to play games that are online, unless it's Fortnite, like whatever, like who cares?
Yeah, bizarre.
Okay, sure, and it just, I don't know. I guess we'll see. Like, I don't think that this is gonna help its popularity amongst developers, because you got to imagine if you were one of the developers that struggled to get your game on Xbox because it wouldn't run on Series S, and then now they're like, oh, Larian gets a pass though. Okay, cool. Maybe
you think so? You don't think there's going to be a bunch of people positive who are just like, oh, thank God we can finally drop that one feature that was coming to X that will not run on S, and we can finally
depends
just
on how flexible they are. I think if you can just go to them and be like, hey, look, 90% feature parity, but like this one thing doesn't work, or we can't get this, and it's that simple. And the new party line from Xbox is, well, you bought a Series S, you knew you were a second-class citizen, this is fine. Then
I mean, that
okay.
doesn't sound great, does it?
I don't like that. Yeah, but
that's what he said,
we'll see.
right? So it's like, if that's how they position it, and that's what we're doing moving forward, it's like, okay, but I don't think that feels great if you're one of the people that shelled out for it. But let's talk more about Gamescom. Chris, you went to Gamescom.
I did. Yeah, it was my first time.
First time. What'd you think?
Yeah. It was kind of overwhelming in a way, because it's like the biggest gaming convention in the world now, with the death of E3, and there was like 360,000 people there or something crazy in the course of the week. But it's just non-stop. I was so busy. I had like 15, 20 meetings or something, so it was back to back. I didn't get a chance to breathe. But it was all good fun.
Yeah.
Saw so much stuff, and it was like, I went to opening night live as well. It was funny because you sat down like 3 rows from where like Phil Spencer was sat, and I was like, oh look, there's Phil Spencer, and like within 10 seconds he was mobbed by about 40 dudes trying to get selfies. I was like, poor guy. So I went up just to have a look, and sat next to where Phil Spencer was like Ed Boon, the Mortal Kombat guy, and like no one was asking him for selfies. I felt a bit sorry for him.
Did you ask him for one then?
I didn't, because he was sat down. I didn't want to disturb him, but it was just weird because like
I'll ask him for a selfie. Yeah, I feel bad.
One guy did, and he seemed quite like amused by the fact that Phil was getting all this attention, and he was just like he was humbled about it, I think. So yeah, ONL. Weird kind of thing about ONL was like, obviously, if you watched the live stream, like the stage got invaded, didn't it, early on?
Again. Like, seriously, Jeff can't catch a break with this. Like,
seriously,
get like bouncers on the side.
Well, this is the thing, like, because when we went into the event, we went through like a metal detector and stuff. There was security, but then I was like milling around before the show started, and I went right up to the stage, like where that piano was at the beginning. I was taking pictures of that piano. I was right on the stage, so there's zero security.
Yeah,
I was just surprised by that. Like,
and
it took a while for someone to get on stage as well. Like, Jeff was on his own for like a good 10 seconds, so
it's
weird
so tough, though, because knowing what I know about live event production, right?
Sure.
Like, it's like, I could imagine a scenario where you do what you would do at like a live concert, right? Where it's a bigger venue and you have a gap between the stage, and but like, that doesn't work for filming. Like, the front row of people are there, right? Like, it's one
of those tricky things.
It's really shitty, and like, I just really hate like this type of like internet behavior.
Yeah, because he didn't even have a message. It was just some meme bullshit, right? So,
it's like just a person clout chasing who's like, let me fuck up this event that dozens of people spent money and time putting together, and ruin this moment for everybody in the audience. And it's just like, it's like the most profoundly like, look at me type stuff. And it's
super
like,
entitled nonsense.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're only making it harder to have events like that safely. And like, we already have so few of them left. It's like, can you not ruin Gamescom to like have your 15 seconds of fame on TikTok? Like,
pretty much. So yeah, that was kind of a weird thing. I was just kind of surprised at how lax it was, but hey, the show itself was great. My highlight from ONL, at least, and probably like the show in terms of what was announced, was that what's it called? Thank Goodness You're Here, is it? The
new Panic game?
Yeah, the kind of Panic game. It's like Northern England kind of black comedy game, adventure game. It looks great.
Yeah, they call it what do they call it? A slapformer?
Right.
Yeah,
okay. I'm familiar. Yeah, because it's like very slapstick
kind of cartoony
comedy. Yeah.
I was like picking up on little like vibes. Oh, there's like a red phone box, and there's like a red.
They announced another game today. Panic is on fire. I'm really glad they're kind of doubling down on the game publishing stuff, because I thought it was going to be a one and done thing with Firewatch.
Yeah.
And then Untitled Goose Game was a hit. They've got Nor coming out for PlayStation 5. They've got like
Play
3 other
date.
games that they've announced. The Play Date. Like they've got so much going on.
Yeah, they're keeping busy for sure.
They're a wacky company. They're cool.
Yeah, and then I use Transmit every single day. So
there we go. Yeah, it's one of those weird things. I'm like sat there watching like Opening Night Live, and I'm like, oh look, a Mac developer. What's going on? Oh no, wait, it's it's they do games now. Sure. But hey, so yeah, that was that. And like I said, I had like a ton of meetings throughout the week. Saw some really cool games.
Any other highlights?
Yeah, there was Still Wakes the Deep, and I'm not into horror games, but this looks really cool. It's out next year. It's like a adventure kind of horror game set on a oil rig in the 1970s in the North Sea.
Okay, I remember this one.
Yeah, so if you got like fear of the sea and the ocean and stuff, maybe avoid this one. But yeah, I was watching like a meeting demo of that, and the voice acting in it is really, really good because they've nailed kind of like the Scottish lingo. So if you're familiar with like the Glaswegian and like all that sort of kind of, yeah, I'm not going to butcher. I'm not going to butcher a Scottish like.
You thought about it.
It's okay.
I did. I considered it for a second, but no, I'm not going to do it. But yeah, really enjoyed that.
The team that made Dear Esther, right?
Chinese Room.
And
yeah,
everybody's gone to the Rapture.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
So yeah, that was really good. And another one, which is kind of like an indie game that kind of took me by surprise, to be honest, because I didn't know much about it. It's a game called Quadroids. And it's a puzzle game that completely messes with your head in that it's like, it looks like you're playing a multiplayer game because the screen is split into 4 sections, but you're controlling all 4 screens at once. And yeah, like each button on your controller is kind of dedicated to each quadrant of the screen, and like a character will move between them, and you've got to like do some puzzle platforming kind of as they move automatically between each screen. So you'll be pressing LB up there here, RB up there, X, Y, or whatever it may be. I can't remember, but really messed with my head, and I really enjoyed it. Really, really inventive.
Are they constantly moving? Like they're always like lemmings?
Yeah, exactly like that. Yeah.
Wow,
and you got to time. You got to time.
It could be really challenging as you kind of get further into the game.
Yeah, I was speaking to the developer. It's just a solo developer doing this, and he said there's like I think it's like 150 levels, but I might be wrong on that. But he said like he'd probably like workshopped in his head like 500 levels that he had to just scrap because they didn't work. But really kind of inventive stuff. So yeah, it's going to melt your head. But I'm really looking forward to that one.
That's wild to me, man. Like after reading, I think it's something he says in Blood, Sweat, and Pixels. Jason Schreier has like a line where he's like, it's a miracle any video game gets made. I think you add a multiplier on that when it's a single person developer.
Yeah.
A puzzle game though, it's like, I feel like that requires such a very specific type of mind to be like, let me come up with an idea for a puzzle game and then come up with more than 500 levels because you had to throw 400 to 500 out because you got into it and you're like, actually, this doesn't work. Like, this is not a good puzzle. It's like, how do you, I can't imagine how hard it is to develop that and then to test it and be like, is this satisfying? How do you know if a puzzle's fun if you came up with the solution?
Well, that's exactly what he said. He's like, this has been really valuable this week to see people actually play these because I don't know if you're going to just you don't know what's in my head. So it's one of those weird things.
Right. Let alone right.
Exactly. And to add to the kind of complexity of it, obviously you start off with one character kind of moving between the 4 screens, but I think it goes up to like 4 or 5 characters on screen that you have to control kind of simultaneously with 4 buttons. So yeah, mess with your head. That's coming out
crazy.
I think end of the year, but yeah, that was kind of one of my highlights for sure.
That's cool. What's that one called again?
Quadroids. Yeah.
It looks really cool. This seems like the most inventive puzzle game I've seen since Baba Is You in terms of this like style of indie puzzler. And similarly, I do not know how they came up with some of the puzzles in that. Like, I couldn't have got through that game.
Hurt my head.
I couldn't have got through it without a walkthrough on some of them.
What else did I see? My colleague Kevin, he tried this thing called I don't know how you pronounce it. It's OWO. I don't know if it's OO or something, but it's called an OO suit. And it's basically like a haptic suit that you wear when you're playing VR, which will, they said it's not vibration, but like haptics or whatever, right? Yeah. So he tried it on and they were talking us through the demo and saying like, oh, so you'll feel certain things. So like when you get shot, you'll feel the bullet go in, and then you'll feel the bullet come out on the other side.
Oh, that's crazy. Okay.
Yeah, with like vibration. And she's like, oh, if like because they're going to have a partnership with Assassin's Creed Mirage, I think it is. So like if someone stabs you, you'll feel the knife go in, and then you'll also feel them twist it, and then you'll feel the blood kind of trickle down your chest or whatever. So that's crazy stuff. And there's like a companion app to like set it up and stuff for like the VR. And the guy demoing it was saying, oh, what sort of intensity do you want? It goes all the way up to like 80 on this scale. And my colleague's like, oh, keep going. I want to see how far it goes. And his arm starts shaking like this, just uncontrollably. I'm like, okay, maybe that's too high. But he was saying how like immersive it was for like the VR side of thing, because he was there playing some like 3D shooter in VR, and because he could feel himself getting shot in the back, he knew instinctively to turn around and shoot the guy behind him. Mm-hmm. So it was really, really fascinating. I mean, it's an expensive piece of kit. It's like $400 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to struggle to get buy-in, especially on console from like developers and stuff. But on PC, they have some kind of mod community, so you can just kind of patch it into stuff. But really interesting product.
I feel like stuff like that is so interesting. Like, I feel like the most interesting application of tech like that is not consumer tech. Like, I think something like that, like a theme park, right? Or like, like the next evolution of like laser tag, right?
Yeah,
like,
I think we were speaking to them, and the whole product was kind of born out of this kind of fitness thing. So originally it was like a device you was using in the gym and stuff. So it kind of has a different legacy of kind of where it came from. But yeah, this is the application they were kind of showing it off, and it was kind of wild.
I'm imagining like it's like a workout program where it's like someone's chasing you with a knife, you know? And it's like you can feel them stabbing you, run faster.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the games it says it works with is super hot, so I could see that. Like,
that would be awesome.
And it just kind of got my mind racing as kind of what you could do in terms of like the ultimate VR setup, because you get those like weird like spot treadmills you can get, can't you? That you can run off the spot.
Like walking on the
shoes, the suit, the whole thing.
That's what I want. Like I want it. I feel like that's like would be so cool in a controlled environment where it's like everybody goes and we all strap in, and it's like, you're 10 people in a room and you can hear, like
plug into the Matrix. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And like, throw on like a microphone and then like bust it in like 3D audio so that it's like contextual where you are in the map.
Yeah, that'd be sweet.
Like that would be so much cooler, because like, the amount of stuff you need to buy to like have that experience, but then also like what games are even going to support all that stuff. Whereas like, if you have a warehouse somewhere where they're building like, a couple different specific video game like type encounters that you could, go and act out or whatever. Like that would be awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things that would lend themselves well to that sort of like experience type thing that you go to. Yeah, because then you haven't got to buy all that expensive kit. So
yeah, and like you can accentuate it more with like AR. Like if you are like in a physical space, like you could have a fog machine, right? Like you could you could have like lights that are like or like you could have like physical like items in the room
kind of
that then you
augment the space. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's like such an interesting angle for like where that tech could go long term. I can't imagine, like you said, I can't imagine a lot of console developers being like, we'll develop the AR suit attachment.
Yeah, I think the only one they got buy-in with is Assassin's Creed on the console. So
I mean, Ubisoft to buy into any trend.
This is it.
They see something, they're just like, sure, go on.
We'll give it a go.
They're so happy to do that, right? Like they that was like the first game ever, like that you could cloud stream. They're like, yeah, you can play Assassin's Creed 3 in Google Chrome because I don't know reasons.
Why not?
I want to know how the Ubisoft NFTs are going. Like, did anyone make a good investment there on their like Rainbow Six NFTs, or have we all forgotten about those?
I think we've all forgotten about that.
I think they'd like us to all forget about them. Yeah.
Yeah, someone was showing me some kind of NFC hardware device at Gamescom, and they were like, "Oh, it's NFC, not NFT. It's the right one." I'm like, "Okay, just."
Like
they were very keen to stress that. Yeah, exactly. They were very keen to stress that point. Yeah.
I imagine that's a common issue for them. Yeah.
So, what else did I play? I mean, I gave Prince of Persia a go. That looks really fun. Reminded me of Metroid Dread in a really good way.
Okay, love to hear
forward,
that.
Yeah, looking forward to that one. Weird, kind of Nintendo's presence at Gamescom was just weird to me. because obviously their booth, they had Splatoon 2 on the play floor, odd, and like Zelda. Yeah. Sorry, 3, obviously.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like,
and yeah, Tears of the Kingdom. Everybody 1-2 Switch. When I walked past that, no one was playing it. And they had Prince of Persia at their booth, which had the longest line, so it makes sense. But their booth was weird. I'm like, why are you there? And then obviously in the business area,
like anything like Mario Wonder or anything. I kind of thought we would have seen playable versions of that.
No, it was a very odd booth. Like their presence there was a bit odd to me. And then they had like a big booth in the business area, and who knows what was going on in there.
Yeah, I've heard rumors that
me too.
they've been showing things, but then I also saw that Nate the Hate said like, no, that didn't happen. The press didn't see anything, but developers were also at Gamescom, so I could see that the developers maybe saw something.
Yeah, I've heard mixed things, but I mean, I want to drink the Kool-Aid, but I don't think they did. I think we would have heard something if it had happened. Yeah, who knows?
That or Chris signed an NDA.
No, I tried. No, they were very polite and told me to, sling my hook. So hey.
I hope you were wearing that shirt when you went in. Maybe you just have the confidence and you just walk in there as if you're an employee.
This is the problem. I wore this shirt to the Switch reveal event back in 2017 or whatever it was in Manchester, and obviously all of the staff were wearing the exact same thing, so I got confused for like a member of staff about 3 or 4 times. It was a bit of an error to wear a Nintendo Switch shirt to that event.
That happens to me a weird amount at events,
right?
I had that. I was at Play NYC a couple weeks ago, and I had that where somebody was like asked me a question. I was like, I don't work here. I'm just here.
Just got the look.
You just walk around with confidence, and people are like, surely you must know something, right?
Yeah. So
So I wanted to pull a question from one Andrew Valentine who wrote in. Andrew wrote in with a couple questions. We hit on a couple of them already, but one I wanted to touch on was, what's the general vibe of Gamescom? Andrew asks. Like, have you been to other events? Like, I know you said this was your first Gamescom. Have you been to PAX? Have you been to other of those types of events? Is it similar to those?
I've been to
more oriented around press.
I've been to a fair few kind of stuff in the UK, but this is like years ago now. Like when there used to be stuff in the Excel Centre down in London, but and there was one up in Scotland.
The 2 big ones we've got in the UK are EGX and Insomnia.
Yeah, I've not been to those, but I'm talking about I was reminiscing one of the earliest ones I can remember going to. It was like playing a demo for Halo 2, so that shows you how long ago that was.
Oh, okay.
And there was an event up in Scotland I used to go to as well, where I saw Peter Moore give a talk. So that ages me.
Wait, which talk was it? Was it the one where he was bullshitting about the Kinect game?
No, this was when he was at EA. So after that,
my God, we're talking about Spore.
Yeah.
The most ambitious game in history.
But in terms of my Gamescom experience, it was a bit of a nightmare if I went onto the public show floor because it was so busy. I was like, I'm going to catch COVID here. So I was busting out the mask when I was walking through the public areas and stuff because it was really, really busy. Wall to wall people, especially on the Saturday and not on the Saturday, on the Friday. But yeah, the business areas were nice and quiet, so that was fine. But yeah, in terms of the vibe, it was good. There was a lot to see and a lot to do, and they'd obviously spent a lot of money because the show was impressive. Yeah.
And I guess it's more fan centric, but there are those business areas. Is that where most of your meetings were taking place, like in the business areas?
Yeah. It was like a business area, a press area, and I had one meeting that was on the show floor, and didn't last very long because I could barely hear a thing. The poor guy was trying to do his demo on the show floor. It was just not going well for him. But hey.
Yeah, it's the nature of
just like you're in a nightclub just trying to play.
Yeah, pretty much. There was literally some guy throwing things off the stage to people to catch. I say games, you say calm, and it's okay, I can't deal with this. Party zone. Yeah, it was good. It was good. I had a good time.
Awesome.
I'd go again for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was going to be my next question. You planning on going again?
Yeah, I'd like to. It was good fun.
I'm
nice
trying
to get out
I'm
there.
trying to drag Steve to it next year. I'm trying to justify flying out.
Yeah, that'd be great. And obviously, it was the first time I'd ever met Kevin as well, face to face. So that was nice.
That's
he's
awesome.
He's my co-founder at Overkill, a website that we run together. Have you guys ever met face to face?
No, we were meant to last year, but I couldn't make it to Pete's wedding.
So there you go, Gamescom next year. Get it in the diary. Although
Yeah,
already the hotels are insanely priced. So yeah.
Have they like announced the date, or is it like when?
Yeah, they have. I can't remember the dates,
Yeah,
but they have announced them. Yeah.
that's cool. Because like I know for Glastonbury, people just like guess, and they're like, I'm gonna try and
Book my
guess when
time
the
off.
date
Yeah.
is and book a hotel here.
Bold.
Yeah.
If you get it right though, like you can resell your booking and you
Yeah,
make a lot of money.
Right? I mean, like you can cancel up to a certain date, right? So it's like, you know, who knows? Maybe it works out.
We didn't actually even stay in Cologne. We stayed in like a place like half an hour away. Just it was too expensive otherwise.
All right. So here's the thing, Chris. We have a little segment on this show currently called the question block. And we got a couple questions. No, you know, normally I save the Nintendo stuff for Nintendo Noise, but of course, the folks knew you were coming on. They know you from Switch Weekly. They want to hit you with some Nintendo questions. You down?
Okay,
you down to
okay.
hit a couple of these before we
let's
wrap
do
it
it.
up?
Let's do it.
All right. So this is another question from Andrew Valentine. We got two. I'll ask the first one. It's a quick one. Any plans to introduce a video component to the output of Switch Weekly?
Right. Well, I've got a YouTube channel. I very rarely upload. Probably not in earnest. I mean, it's one of those things. YouTube's a tough game. We're trying to make a success of it on Overkill as well. So now I've got somebody else kind of like keeping me accountable. It's a little bit easier, but when I'm flying solo, it's a grind, man. So I don't want to be negative, but yeah, that's probably the reality of it.
Hey,
yeah, I can respect that. I mean, you know, we struggle with YouTube, and then like we're trying to like figure out TikTok and Instagram and Shorts.
You can only
like,
be so many places.
Yeah.
Who knows what's next?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why we stop streaming all the time, right? Because it's just like we're pushing a boulder up a hill here.
Yeah, pretty much. Exactly.
And then one last question from Andrew. There's a broad consensus on the best case scenario for Switch 2. Same, but better with backwards compatibility. But I've asked the other hosts before, what's your pitch for the worst case scenario? So Andrew specifically asked us to try to design our worst case scenario for a Nintendo Switch 2. Okay. What do you think? What's like the announcement they can make where you're like, your heart sinks and you're like, oh no.
It's some sort of like, the thing is, like, I'm kind of in a rock and a hard place on this because like you said, you want it to be this kind of continuum of what's come before it. You know, Switch 2, play it safe. That's kind of the consensus everyone wants. But the thing is with Nintendo, isn't it? It's like the worst case scenario could also be the best case scenario. You just don't know until you see it. And that's kind of the fear of it all. It's like they could announce some crazy gimmick waggle crap, but that might also be great. You just don't know. It's like, you know, you remember back to when the Switch was announced and we all saw 1-2 Switch and like this crazy controller that had an IR sensor in it and this new HD tech in it.
Cubes inside.
Yeah, exactly. And it was kind of that kind of thing again, where you're like, oh, is this going to be weird? But no, it's fine.
Even like, I guess the nature of the Switch itself. I remember being like, there's no way it's going to be that quick, right? Like, there's no way you just pull it out or drop it in and it just goes on. It's like, and it does though.
Bam. Yeah. So in terms of what I think the worst case scenario would be, I think the biggest thing for me is just if they just abandoned the platform that they developed and the kind of backwards compatibility with it all. I know it's a really boring answer, but it's
that
just
was ours too.
Yeah, it's just leaving behind what they built because they've got such a strong foundation now.
And for me, it was also doing nothing to address Joy-Con drift. It stays the same, and we just continue going forwards with the exact same crappy.
It'd be nice if they had like Hall sensing joysticks in the next one, but in terms of like it being a disappointment, I think it's just some weird gimmick that alienates what they kind of built on before, and they start from scratch completely, and it's an uphill battle because the game has changed. I mean, the Switch came in and like legitimized the form factor, and now other players are doing it. I mean, not to the same level at all. I mean, like Nintendo aren't worried about the Steam Deck at all, are they? It's small fry comparatively, but it's obviously eaten part of that conversation and stuff, especially around the indie stuff. So it's tough.
Yeah, I think
no wild predictions, but it's tough. Yeah.
The other thing I think I mentioned was paying to upgrade every single game so it will work on the Switch 2. So you're like, oh, I want to play Tears of the Kingdom, but it doesn't just work. I've got to pay another $10 in order to play that on my
yeah, and it's one of those things like you could totally see Nintendo doing that, but
or not letting you do it at all.
Yeah, this is the thing.
Being like, oh, you want to play it? Yeah, buy the deluxe version.
So unpredictable, and I'm fascinated to know how they make this next transition because I think it's really, really tricky for them. I mean, they're in a good place, but I think the hardest part for them is probably the timing and getting the messaging right on what it is, because their last transition was a nightmare, wasn't it? So, yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like we did a whole episode about it when that first story came out, where it's like they've historically struggled to transition from generation to generation, right? Like,
yeah,
we had the NES to Super Nintendo. I think is the only one where it's
gone
gets
well.
bigger. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Where it's Game Boy to Game Boy Advance drop off, DS, 3DS drop off, Wii to Wii U drop off. So
yeah,
it's certainly a risk.
What about
yeah.
the micro though? That would have been such a huge success.
Yeah.
That thought there, Chris, is a good jumping off point for this next question. A couple questions. This comes from Syrian3 over on the Discord, who wrote in and said, "What are your thoughts about the future of Switch? The existing fan base will, of course, join the bandwagon when Switch 2 is released, but how will they attract a new player base? When Switch was released, there really wasn't much competition in the handheld market. Now, Nintendo find themselves up against beefy units like Valve Steam Deck and the Asus ROG Ally. Imagine you've decided you're going to get a new handheld. Which one would you get? I honestly don't see why you would go with a Switch 2 unless the hardware gives you something the others don't. And given their hardware track record, I don't see that happening. Or the exclusive titles like Super Mario and Zelda enough to tip the scale."
I think, right off the bat, the unique IP definitely is enough to tip the scale for Nintendo, because that's always what's tipped the scale and got the ball rolling, at least.
Yeah. Software is what sells hardware. Like that's
that's always been the golden rule with Nintendo, and that's always the case, and it always will be. In terms of the conversation around the kind of other competitors that have come into the space, I think, like I've said just now, it kind of legitimized the form factor that Nintendo introduced, especially like that Lenovo Legion Go that's going to be announced later this week. Has these like weird split Joy-Con controllers.
Last week,
it's so strange,
So just again, kind of that form factor that Nintendo introduced is a winner.
There. I was surprised with the $800 price on that.
Oh, we got a price point on it? 800.
Yeah, today got
That's
another
not that
leak.
Bad.
Or was it yesterday?
That's kind of weird. We were definitely thinking it would be closer to 1,000.
But in terms of like those rival kind of handhelds like the Steam Deck and stuff, I don't really think they're a big concern really for Nintendo, because the kind of experience for the average consumer, at least, is so night and day different. I mean, you have to tinker with the Steam Deck still. I know it's more of a console-like experience, but I have to make sure this game works, and I have to make sure the settings run at a certain. There's kind of a bit of friction there.
I don't think anyone that wants to play a Nintendo game knows what TDP is and has any desire to learn. Yeah. And I think that's absolutely fine. It's a plug-and-play device. Even Phil Spencer said, right? It's a traditional plug-and-play console that is under the $300 price point, and that's important. And I think that's where they continue to want to be, and they will continue to sell hardware. It's also very different in that I look at the Switch as a very multiplayer console in the way I don't look at any of my other consoles or pieces of hardware as multiplayer. I will pull that out whenever I have friends around, and I like, let's play some Mario Kart, let's play some Smash Brothers, let's play some Mario Party.
Yeah.
And I don't do that with my Steam Deck, and I don't do that with my Xbox or my PlayStation, because it's just easy with the Switch.
Yeah, and exactly. And the sales kind of numbers reflect that, in terms of like, 130 million or wherever it is for the Switch now. And, the Steam Deck's going to be like, what, 3-4 million at best. I mean, I know it's like apples and oranges in terms of how long these devices have been on the market, but it kind of speaks to the audience size for these. And, it's, at the end of the day, it's still a PC. The console experience is simplified for a reason, and Nintendo won't get away from that, and that will still be their strength, especially when you consider like Sony aren't going all in on this. We've just discussed that the Portal is like not what the Switch is, and Xbox's strategy is just to put it everywhere on all of these others, like the ROG Ally, the Legion Go, Lenovo, whatever it was, the Logitech G Cloud and things like that. So I don't think Nintendo have to worry. It's I think that was kind of the gist of the question, right, in terms of their hardware and stuff. But
which one would you get if you could only pick one? I guess that's the last question. Is what would you get?
I think I'd probably still stick with the Switch, if I'm being completely honest. It's because it's just got those core experiences that I care about. Of course, I mean, there's a reason there's like Super Mario 64 behind me and stuff. Nintendo fan boy at heart. So, but it's also the ease of which the kind of the software and hardware experience is. It's the whole reason I've got an iPhone. It's that marriage of hardware and software that they nail.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because like I think Syrian's question here like just speaks to what we were talking about earlier, where like the right device for you has a lot to do with you as an individual. Because like, I think it's funny to me, right? Like I read this question and you say, I honestly don't see why you would go with the Switch 2. I feel the exact opposite way, where like if you were asking like, oh, I'm gonna get a handheld console, what are my options? I don't see why anyone would ever pick anything but the Switch if they were only going with one option, unless they just straight up do not like Nintendo games, right?
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Then it's easy. Yeah.
Then whatever, right?
Or if that one game that they play constantly doesn't run on Switch and they want to play that one game, right?
Yeah.
Like if their one game is Genshin Impact and they want to play that, I'm probably recommending like an ROG Ally for them because it runs on Windows. You don't have to worry about the anti-cheat and you can just carry on playing that constantly.
True.
Yeah, and I guess it's just like, who is that person, right? Because it's like, I think the handheld PC stuff, it speaks to a specific user, a specific type of user, and somebody who is interested in tinkering or maybe wants to play fan games or wants a good emulator or like
modding and stuff.
Yeah, right. Like
it's the person that enjoys getting it to work more than actually playing the game.
Yeah, exactly.
And like that's definitely part of it.
Valid point.
Yeah, that's totally part of it.
I think when you get back to it, right? Like, how will they attract a new player base? They'll put out Game of the Year. That's how. That's what they do.
I also think this forgets the fact that people age and younger people come in, and the younger people want to play games, and they're constantly going to have
and the old
consoles to sell to those people. More and more people are born every day, and more people want to play these
8-year-olds want to play Pokemon, and that's where you get it. So that's the way it is.
30-year-olds want to play Pokemon, and that's why they have been making money off me my entire life.
Precisely. Says me.
It's a good business model, right?
Gotten back into buying Pokemon cards like a massive loser, but hey, there we are.
Hey, I just got an Ivysaur tattoo, so you're in good company. Don't worry.
Yeah. But yeah, in terms of how they bring that player base over, like the question asked, I think he said like there's like the 120 million, and like a lot of those will kind of just move over and gravitate anyway. But how do you get the new player base? That's where you'll find the kind of Nintendo gimmick of it all, because like. Yeah, the hardcore Nintendo fans, they just want them to play it safe and do Switch 2 or whatever it is. But there's going to be something. It's just knowing what it is. There's going to be some sort of gimmick to make it have that news story that gets it on, I don't know, USA Today or Good Morning America or whatever it is, So there's going to be something weird about it for sure.
That's what they do.
I kind of hope there isn't. I don't want an IR sensor on there that doesn't really do anything other than read my pulse when I'm playing Ring Fit.
Yeah, I would.
Vitality sensor.
I think it would be a really cool gimmick if, like, the gimmick was it's more powerful, and they're like, instead of us putting an IR sensor that we're barely going to get any mileage out of, we spend that money on.
I want that dock to do something. Give me like a dock with like a turbo mode or something that has some kind of GPU or something in there. Like
sick, especially like we talked about it on a recent episode where it's like. All you would have to do is make that an optional add-on, right? Where it's like base dock, base performance, no problem. And if you want the souped up dock that upgrades.
See, now you're getting back around to the S and X problem again. So.
Yeah, exactly. They're not going to do that. I just don't think they will. It'd be
cool. I
think
they could, because it's like you end up with the same core experience, but all it would do is like maybe that enables the DLSS or something for like the up-resing to 4K, so it looks 4K or something. But the performance is the same or whatever. I don't know. Like, I really think that was a missed trick.
They kind of underutilize that dock. Yeah. Maybe they'll revisit VR, because they did that with the whole kind of cardboard labo thing, right? Stick the screen on your face.
Yeah, third time's a charm, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's it.
Failed with Virtual Boy, failed with Labo.
They're like, you know what? We decided now, 2024, perfect time to get into the VR market.
Yeah. No, we're way off from that yet, but who knows? I have no idea what they're going to do, but I can't wait to see what they do, because it's going to be fascinating, and hopefully it's safe, but also kind of uniquely weird and Nintendo in some small way. That's kind of my hope.
Soon, too.
Well, yeah, I think late 2024.
Fingers crossed.
That's my kind of goal. I reckon they're going to shoot for then, but hey.
You heard it here first. Or second.
Last.
Awesome. Well, Chris, thank you so much for joining us here.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, literally anytime, man. It's always fun getting to catch up with you. Remind the folks at home where they can find you and your work.
Okay, cool. So yeah, the Nintendo Switch newsletter is over at switchweekly.com. Send that out every Sunday. And the stuff current, all of the new kind of handheld stuff is over at overkill.wtf.
Nailed it. What device is that you're holding there?
This is
an Aya Neo.
This is the Aya Neo, yeah.
Show it off.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, there you go. Just picked this up, so kind of
Is that your primary one right now? Like,
no,
we
I've not even set this up yet. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we gotta have
you should come on the
Steam
Steam Deck podcast
Deck.
to talk about it and tell us like how you like it versus the Steam Deck and all of that stuff.
Here's my thing. I found someone who uses an ROG Ally, and that's like their primary one. We got to get like a round table, and we have everybody. Well, we got to hash it out.
Yeah.
What's the best?
Which one's the one to go
Kevin using? Is he still on the ROG?
He's got the ROG Ally and like I think about 2 other Aya Neo devices, and I don't know, God knows. Yeah.
Well, I look forward to your PlayStation Portal coverage. I'm sure you will be jumping at the chance to play on that device, right?
Oh yeah, totally.
There you go. Awesome. Well, thanks again, Chris. Everybody, make sure you go and give them a follow. Make sure you all go check out Overkill and Switch Weekly if you haven't already. You're messing up. So go give them a follow. Go show them some love and let them know that we sent you.
Appreciate it.
We'll have. I mean, Kevin was supposed to come on Steam Deck podcast like last year, so we're overdue. We got to get you 2 over on Steam Deck podcast.
Cool. I'll nudge him on that one for sure.
Maybe we'll take a week off at some point, Pete, and they can do like a takeover episode.
That'd be great.
There you go. Yeah. Put your feet up. Actually play some video games for a change.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.
I've got Baldur's Gate to catch up on. I'm nowhere in Tears of the Kingdom. Diablo 4 is just sat there.
Here's what we do. You and I show up, and we'll just sit and listen to them do the show, and you and I can just play.
Yeah. Well, this is it. I bought Pikmin 4, and I was like, I'll play that on the train to Cologne because I took the Eurostar. I didn't play any of it. I'm still trying to finish Tears of the Kingdom, so I'm backlogged up to the wizard.
Man,
so hey,
I'll tell you what. Make the time for Pikmin 4. If you get to a point where you're like you want to play something, but you're like maybe like too tired to get into Tears of the Kingdom, it's so much chiller than the previous entries.
I love Pikmin. I've been there since day one, like with the original on the GameCube. So
it's such a
big
good
fan.
Hell yeah, dude! I want. It's like one of the only amiibo that I'm missing, and I want it so bad. But yeah, it's a really good like wind down at the end of the day type of game because it's way more like oriented on like the puzzles and the exploration than the like.
Yeah, because like Pikmin generally is a bit stressful, but yeah,
it's definitely a much chiller pace this time around.
Right.
Might be a good one for that. But anyway, go give Chris a follow. Go check out all of his work. We'll have links to it down below. If you want to find links to our stuff, remember, it's FlipScreen.games. That's the website. You can find our Patreon. You can find our Discord. You can find our sister shows. All the places we are, all over the web. There's a link over there. You go click on them. Helps us out a ton. Help us keep these mics and these lights hot. And we show up. We show up and do the show for you. So go and click on some stuff so you can keep up with all the cool stuff that we're doing here on FlipScreen Games. For the crew, I've been Pete. Everyone's all in different spots now. I've been Pete. He's been Steve. He's been Chris. We'll see you next week.